Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another brand new episode of
Yes, Dulcet Tones, yes.
I never ever know what you're going to do with that now. And it's the best thing ever. Ladies and gents, thank you so much for tuning into this second episode of Dulcet Tones. Following up from our pilot a few weeks ago, I'm joined once again by the legendary Stephen Murray, my ever reliable co host. Stephen, how are you doing on this fine? We're recording on a Sunday evening. How are we doing, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. The weather is delightful, and it's great to just look into your eyes across the pond, as they'd say. Yes.
Hey man,
And
let's
now I'm
just
done with
swap
that.
it. Let's just swap it around. I'm just gonna play it Midwest, just play it really safe. Let's do that.
Sure,
Uh,
dude.
Okay. By the way, 80% of the audience just stopped listening, just purely because of me. So
That's not good math. That is not good math.
it's fine. We can make it work. Um,
Yeah.
so coming into this second episode, we're kind of continuing our focus on the performing arts. Dulcet Tones is all about our life in the industry on all sides, whether it's being a jobbing actor, navigating the challenges of auditions, working with directors. We allow ourselves to segue and go off on tangents, but fundamentally, it is about the creative arts industry and our experiences within that. And our focus for this second episode is on the notion of character. What are the characters that we may tend to gravitate to as both actors and directors? But also, is there an element where you might try to say push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit, thinking you want to try and stretch and challenge and go for a character that perhaps you haven't played before, but then perhaps due to prior typecasting or being kind of pigeonholed in a certain way, you end up not being given those opportunities. So like to kind of kick that off, it's obviously a very, very broad topic with a lot for us to kind of delve into. Are there sort of when you're looking at audition sides, when an opportunity comes your way, are there things you tend to sort of gravitate to because you know it's in your wheelhouse? You know it's something that you can access with relative ease compared to, say, something else more challenging.
Yeah, I use the term familiarity quite often,
Mm,
and I internalize that as well because in my mind, familiarity leads to comfort, calmness, and confidence. So if you know the genre of what you're auditioning for, say it's a video game, and how typically those types of genres are acted out, or an audio drama, motion comic, audiobooks, or commercial work, because those are they're all different in their own little way. Some are
right.
vastly different. Then there's that familiarity of it, and that leads to the comfort of knowing the genre, the calmness of like, hey, you know what? It's all good. Even if something pops up and I get the role, and I'm getting live directed, I can bounce back and forth. And then the confidence, meaning, hey, I'm passionate about this, and I can do it. Whatever it is, I'm going to be able to
Nice.
do it because it is in my wheelhouse. So when it comes to that aspect of the process, when it comes to the comfort zone, that's what a lot of times I'll latch
Mm,
into. And even if it's the fact that maybe I'm familiar with the vehicle, I'm familiar with the podcast or the audio drama, the video game itself, the casting director, their work or the company they put out, and I'll do some research with that too. I'll do research. I'll Google them. I'll see if their moral compass aligns with mine.
mm.
If I'm not familiar with them, and that's how I kind of look to see some aspects of I'm a good fit for that character, if that makes a little bit of sense.
No, absolutely. And actually, that kind of ties in with a conversation you and I have had for a while now about, the idea that sometimes when you're seeing these auditions come up, you look into the developer, you see the character breakdown, and you go, okay, that's within my comfort zone, as you mentioned there. But there might be something that then about sort of around the character or around the development that might put you off. And I know something we've talked about many, many times off air has been about the impact that AI is having on the industry right now. It's something that just recently we in our Tag and Bag podcast with Jeff Steitzer, we did a whole episode about had AI sort of come across his desk and been a thing that's affected his working life. Is that something where if a developer sort of stated quite explicitly that they were going to be using elements of AI generation, or that in fact your performance would be feeding into an AI generated approach, would that be a red flag for you? Do you think?
Instant red flag, and
Right.
I don't see currently a scenario where I'd say yes to the project. I
Right.
that may
Okay.
change. I highly doubt it, but I would just probably say no. It kind
Mm.
of like leans back to the moral compass aspect of it,
Mm.
where maybe it is a great payday. I'm also not saying, I'm not wagging my finger at anyone else that decides to do that as a
Right.
voice actor. We all have different backgrounds, we all have different needs, and we all have different wants. But I'm not begging for food, so I will not do the project.
Yeah, nice. If you're,
That's how
I suppose that's a
that's how
good
it looks.
distinction to make there, isn't it? That if you're in the position to be able to let your morals define your choice, and it's not necessity, it's not sort of a financial um pressure that's necessitating your decision making. If it's you in a position where you can allow yourself to choose based on that moral compass, I think that is okay. And it just as equally as it is, as you said, for someone else who sees a project like that but needs to get the work and needs to do that to make peace with that and do that for themselves. And both versions of that I think are correct. And I suppose the thing that really interests me is the idea of, going back to this idea of choice, choosing the characters that we gravitate to. Are there certain archetypes that you find yourself either they often come your way because of prior work, or they're just things you can access quickly?
Yeah, usually some type of a bigger voice, where maybe not a grandiose character, but
Mm,
something that can be a bigger than life, a larger than life character. Maybe something that is leaning toward an antagonist.
right.
I dive into that when it comes to other roles that, as we talk about fits and bad fits, like ones that are timid or meekish or quiet or easily scared. I always like I'm totally taken. I take a backseat and I watch or I listen to the actors that can provide these type of characters, bring them to life, and I go, man,
Mm,
I can't do that. Like maybe if I spent more time or just a lot of workshops dealing with that or self auditions or whatever, maybe I could get there. But it's currently not a passion, and it definitely would lead to anxiety if I had to do that. So I stay away from those
right.
roles. I would consider that's currently a bad fit, but that's something as an actor that I could possibly grow into. We all have our
Mm.
strengths and weaknesses and some limitations, and it's great to get outside of the box and try new things because then the box gets bigger and bigger, and
Yeah, because
which
I
is
suppose
fantastic.
knowing those limitations has value too. Because yes, like you
Yeah.
say, you want to stretch and challenge sometimes, but also it's
Hmm.
it's knowing what ultimately is going to be an efficient use of time, especially when you've got multiple things to balance. I have a very much for myself, like with physical theatre in sort of
Hmm.
in live performing arts. Physical theatre is something I'm not particularly good at, and it
Hmm.
tends to be something where I watch it performed or I've seen it rehearsed, and I kind of there's a sort of twinge of jealousy that kind of hits me with this because I kind of go, I can't access that level of physical commitment. I'm not as capable physically as some of these, and it's closer to interpretive dance than anything else. And I'm definitely someone that gravitates more towards either naturalistic performance or something a bit more abstract, a bit like Brecht, placards and spars and those sort of concepts. But it's always been interesting to me whenever I've seen a bit like the equivalent, like you said, about sort of when sort of weaker willed characters or meeker characters come across your desk. Whenever I see anything physical theater, I have a similar response. I go, well, I know that's not in my wheelhouse. And it's whether am I being too close minded? Should I be sort of open to the idea of trying to expand my skill set? You mentioned workshops already. Or is it okay to know where the line is for you creatively?
It's like, I don't know. You always want to make bold, authentic choices
Mm,
when you're doing character work and voiceover. So to make it authentic, you have to sound real. And
right.
if you can't pull it off, right now, then just honestly do a self workshop. Grab a piece you find somewhere, whether it's in whatever form of media, TV, movies, video games,
Absolutely.
books. Jot it down, copy paste, and then record yourself. Try different things. Send it to a friend. Get a critique. Watch those actors in that type of field or genre that you want to kind of get into, and pick and choose what you can kind of take from them and incorporate into your own performance. Those are ways that you can improve, but
Absolutely.
it's for me too, it's like the character that is sometimes too close to home or too real is sometimes the toughest to perform. So I
Mhm.
may not lead that. For me, it's like if I'm more of that character, and everything we do is a character. But if it's one where my voice is a little different than is my regular voice. I may lean toward that, doing a scene that isn't that if I did in my regular voice, I feel like too naked doing, too
Mm,
close to home or unsure. But if I'm this other character, I can approach it that way. I think a lot of actors, that's why they'll do the roles that aren't necessarily what who they are in real life. It can be the nefarious character, this over the top antagonist, because that's not them. And if they say that way and they act that way, it's okay because I'm doing a character. It's not really me.
right, and
So they're
there's a
projecting.
separation
Yeah,
there
there's
as well.
this
And also
separation.
there's also I think I remember hearing Nolan North playing David in The Last of Us, who was this
Okay.
sort of he was a cannibal character, and he couldn't. I only knew he did it because of the credits. I didn't recognize his voice at all. And this is Nathan Drake. This is the guy that has popularized one of the biggest
Yes.
franchises of all time. And yet, when I played The Last of Us, I did not know that was Nolan North. And I have often wondered if there's a certain element of kudos that comes with that. You've been able to get one over on someone because your performance was so unlike your natural timbre and your natural sort of way of your manner, your way of being, that actually there might be an element of, for some actors, I think, that they quite like the idea of
Yeah.
sounding different to their regular voice. They feel like they're really stepping in and out of a character. I know I certainly like that if I've ever performed anything live, doing theatre work, especially youth theatre growing up. I used to love being able to play villains and darker characters because it was so not me. And that was really enticing for me. I could access that and then get sort of a satisfaction from people going, oh wow, that was we didn't expect you to. But never sort of, oh, you're an Oscar winner. It was always people kind of the reaction I always got was people going, oh, you're not shit. Oh, okay.
Mm.
You're not terrible. Oh, so it's sort of like a sort of, yeah, yeah, yeah. Not quite the
It's like a little
arc of the
confidence
compliment.
builder. You're like, well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, it was
I
not
am not
going, they weren't going,
trash.
oh, that was such an incredible performance. It was like, oh, you can act. That was sort of the
Thank you.
response I've had in more than one
That
occasion.
is you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
are more
yeah.
than that the Midwest sounding actor that you portrayed once in a
Exactly.
podcast.
I've had that from students. I've been teaching a class and I very rarely act or do any sort of modeling. If I do anything, I get students to model it and then we unpack feedback from that,
Sure.
positive and constructive. On the rare occasion where I have actually picked up a script and then performed, it's often because I want it's something like we could be looking at something like a Stanislavskian, very natural, very real scene. And I've
Mm.
then just wanted to show them how I can access that emotional memory. Like if the emotion was anger, using those prior thoughts to motivate that response and how you act. I like to show that sometimes because it's quite a complex idea. And there have been moments where, again, where the students have kind of been quite jarred by it. They sort of know that's not I have a pretty long fuse, I don't anger quickly. And I'm generally quite a measured guy. That suddenly to be portraying something like that really sort of took them by surprise, and I quite liked that. I don't know whether that's ego speaking, maybe if there's an element of sort of an ego being satiated there, but
Nothing wrong
I
with
know,
that.
yeah, yeah, I don't know. It's it's a curious
It's
thing, but
interesting, but
yeah,
I believe that it is a little bit of the ego, and that's a good part of the ego. That's the ego that is in every actor, whatever genre you're
sure,
doing, whatever field, whatever medium you're doing, that you need to succeed. It can push some of the self doubt away. It can push some of the imposter syndrome away. It makes us
yes,
human, But
yeah,
there's
yeah,
also the line. There's the line of that ego where we're not all encompassed by said ego and the bravado and the
mm,
ego then your closed thought process, your vision. You're not listening to people. You're not listening to the
right.
director. You're not
That's
listening to
yeah,
your agent, friends, and family. That's the next level.
absolutely.
You're a jerk. You're an a-hole.
Yeah,
That's
that's where the
it starts
ego
building and
then,
building.
if the
Yeah.
if the ego persists when someone says cut, or the scene is done and the audience clap clap clap, we move on. If there's still an element of like I'm somehow above this, I think if that persists off screen, off stage, that's when, like you said, you're being an asshole. That's when it's the
No.
ego that's the like, much like the phrase good selfish. Being good selfish, the word selfish is associated with negative connotation, but to
Right.
be good selfish, it means you put yourself first in order to be able to help others. You look after your
Hmm.
own well-being in order to be supportive of the people around you. And I think there is an equivalent to that, is that you want to be good selfish as an actor. You want to make sure you're prepared, you bring the best possible version of that performance you can, but don't get it twisted, it's acting. When
Yeah.
the director says cut when the stage is blacked out, you are not now Sir Patrick Stewart. You know what I mean? Like it's not
Hmm.
your role. And I have definitely had a sort of a very conscious effort to not be that sort of, certainly in my teaching, is sort of not be the teacher that sort of turns up with their CV stamped to their head, going, "Oh, look how many great adverts I did growing up."
Right.
It's actually, you know, what's the thing that's going to lead to them understanding how to do something better and not servicing an ego. That's where I think it's then that an important distinction. I was curious as well, actually, just off this tangent. Had there
Sure.
ever been moments where it might have been, say, something you discovered, an audition piece that you discovered, or something that just got sent your way, either from an agent or a recommendation from a friend, where someone said to you, "This is it. This is you all over," and you have vehemently disagreed with it? Like you've just then gone, "Nope, no thanks." Don't have to obviously cite the specific example, but just curious if that's ever happened, or is, generally speaking, has the arc of your work always been something appropriate to what you think you can deliver?
I would say the latter.
Right.
The arc
Okay.
is been approved. There's only been one instance that I currently can think of, and involved some commercial work.
Right.
Maybe two instances where it was the character that they're looking for. It was a product that they wanted me to chat about, and I wasn't going to endorse that. So
Oh, I
it was
see. Okay.
yeah, it kind of led into that. And I was
Right.
like, no, no, not going to do. Oh yeah, but you can do this, you can do that. Yes, I can, but not for this product, this
Okay. So
client.
it's not a
Yeah,
question of not being able or capable. It was the choice of not wanting to represent that specific brand.
correct.
Got it. Okay.
And
Interesting.
one other time, because just because I can do a handful or so of impressions, sometimes you get lumped into the mindset, or excuse me, from other people, that you can do any voice out there because you can do a really good impression of
Sure.
this person, this character. So it has happened twice, two or three times in my professional career, where assumptions have occurred.
Mm.
And where they're like, well, since you can do this, you can do that as well, or you can combine these two characters into one. And again, it's a tough situation to be in, to tell them, I can't, or I can't do it to the level
Right.
I'm comfortable with. For you, I'm taking your idea, your image, your words, your product or whatever, and I'm presenting it for you. And it should be to the highest level, because what you do, you spend time on, passion, and passion behind it. You're vehement about it. You want
Mm.
to succeed. You want to succeed. I can't be the voice of that. I can't do it in this vehicle that you're asking me to do it with. So that's happened a couple times, definitely, but it's rare.
Interesting.
It's again, maybe two or three times my entire career.
Yeah, because a lot of that's down to wanting to make sure, again, this is less ego, more pride, is you just wanting to be the best version for their project. You know, they've hired you to do the job, yes, but you know, the pride in our work that we take is that you want to deliver on their vision and make sure it's the best version possible. And sometimes if it's not a good fit, then it's okay, I guess, to just draw that
Well,
line.
I will tell you, because this just popped in my head because I was talking
Yeah.
about a couple examples, and then the biggest one I had blanked out on. And I'm not a stage actor. I'm not a theater actor. I have done some two-person sketch improv comedy
Mm.
skits over the last 10 years. I rarely do it, and I'm lucky. It's usually like a corporate setting, which is wonderful. But I was hosting a murder mystery years ago for
Okay.
this wonderful company, and dinner theater, and I'm on the microphone, just telling people about, oh, food's ready, go here, go there, talking up what's going to happen, just nice stuff, cracking some jokes, walking over, doing some table talk, just hosting the event. And one of the actors was unavailable to play a role in this theater production, and I knew some of the cast, wonderful people, and they kind of asked me politely, hey, can you take the stage and do this role? And I was like, well, I'm working for a different company. Granted, I'm in the same location. It's a sold out event. There's 250 people here. It's packed house. There's the stage, there's the light, there's the backdrop. And it started to unfold that this character, they're like, well, no, we don't really need you. It's just one where it was going to be an audience member. That's what they said, Jonathan. Like, we're gonna have an audience member do it, and this is the type of theater that they would do, where they grab someone from the audience, read a
Right.
line or two, everyone kind of laughs, they hand them the script, yada yada. And as we got closer to showtime, I could see that the director was really, really nervous, and they kept on asking me, and I was like, "Guys, I'm booked for this as a host, not on stage." And quite frankly, I haven't been on stage in a decade. Like, "Oh, just so finally, I acquiesced. I said, "What are we looking at here?" Well, we need you at the beginning of the set. It's going to be a silhouette scene, and you're going to be on an island, and we need you to do a French accent, and
What?
you're going to be playing you're going to be portraying a chef who actually has a different character as well. He's two different characters, and there's a murder that's going to happen, but he's got to be French, and then he's going to be he's just going to pop in and out of this play.
No, this is already making me anxious. No,
I was dude I was losing my mind because I had already said yes, I'm friends with people,
that is
it's a
such a
sold out show.
curveball.
Such a curveball. So I said, listen, guys, I don't do a French accent. I don't. I can't
Yeah,
do it. Like it doesn't even sound good enough to laugh at. Like, yeah, it's supposed to be kind of funny. So the show was called Murder on the Rock. So
okay,
I said, you know what? I'm gonna do it like Sean Connery, like Welcome to the Rock, the
100%.
1990s movie. Yeah. So I said, I'll do the Sean Connery, and then I can change my regular voice for other scenes. And I did the entire. I was in every act, 2 hours on stage for a role that was supposed to go to someone in the crowd,
That's
and
insane.
insane. It was insane. And there I am with this big manuscript of pages. And mind you, when I was handing the script, it didn't have the full script of all the actors. So I don't even know who's portraying this character or another. And
Oh my
sometimes
God,
they
this
would
is like
portray
I'm
they would portray multiple characters.
no,
And I'm like, oh,
no, I'm
it
aging
was
as you describe that. I'm aging. Like that
I'm
is
sorry. I'm sorry.
not okay.
Yeah. Wow. It was yeah, it was definitely a bit nerve-wracking,
Oh,
and
that's
I will
unacceptable.
never do that again.
But
Let's
also
just say that
the level of
yeah.
creative disorganization that would be required to have allowed that to happen, that apparently was supposed to be originally performed by some audience member, only for you to then be handed essentially a Bible to be able to perform live. I mean, it just that is nonsense of the most molten degree. Like that,
So
that's
so
not
to
okay.
to ra- to wrap it up, to pull back the final few layers of it. Again, it was a troupe. It was people we worked with 5 to 6 other times. So I worked with them
Right.
for a few years. Always top notch. You find out later on that one of the actors was like a no call, no show, and there was no one else to fill the bill. But unfortunately, instead of them just being upfront with it and giving me the script well in advance, I mean, literally, I was handed the script 5 minutes before showtime, because I was working too. That yeah, the director was fired from all the other future events.
Wow. Well, yeah.
The
I'm
every one of the actors was individually paid. The director was not paid at all, because of the lying that
Well,
that
thank
occurred.
you for now
Yep.
handling my follow-up question because
Yeah.
yeah, that had to be addressed.
Yeah, it was insane. It was
Yeah.
an experience that I hope never happens again to anyone, let alone myself.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I actually wanted to just completely
Sure.
segueing off topic as we're sort of thinking about
That was
wrapping
off
up.
topic, I
That
believe,
was
too.
great. No, it was great though. But again, it's about sort of some of the curveballs that we're thrown and
Hmm.
when knowing when to say no. I think that there's a powerful element of that because
Yep.
certainly for when it comes, if you're a young actor looking at auditions and looking at uh future plans, in terms of like what you want to do creatively, knowing I think that it's okay that you don't have to just go for everything. I think it's important for young actors to hear. I think there's also an element of, let's play devil's advocate to that. Sometimes necessity. You've got to just shotgun approach it and just get yourself out there. So there's
Yep.
value in both approaches. I'm not saying one is worse or better than the other, but I think it is important for actors to hear that it is okay to know as much as you might want to expand your opportunities and what you're capable of delivering. It's okay to not be typecast necessarily, but sort of deliver the things that you know you're good at. That is
Yeah,
okay.
that's true. And as you're leaning into the concept of good fit and bad fit, as a voiceover actor, I mean, I'll give you an example where I was auditioning for this really fun character in my eyes. Fun meaning it was evil. It was deranged. It was a monster-esque type of character.
Right.
And and I started presenting this audition, and I was working through the script, and I'm tweaking my voice a little bit here, a little bit there, getting deeper, more animalistic, more of a monster. And finally, I go, wow, I've now have worked myself into a place that I can deliver these few lines for the audition based off the bio. And I delivered them, and I said, man, that's pretty good. I get up, I leave my studio, I get some water, I come back, I sit down, and I can't do it. I can't repeat it because it was such an extreme for my voice where I was to
Mm,
get to that point. I couldn't get back to it.
interesting.
So, so what could I have done? I could have, I could have actually presented that audition. I could have sent it out,
Yep.
and maybe I would have got the role. Maybe I would have got
Because
a
you
call
had
back.
it. You had a version
I
of it,
had it.
right? Once.
That would have been, I believe, extremely detrimental to my
Yeah.
career, or at least the relationship with that casting director in that company, because I know going back, I cannot replicate that with my voice, or I couldn't do it sustainably. I could not sustain that voice for a 2 hour or 4 hour recording session. So as a voice actor, you have to be able to, maybe sometimes physically you're not able to stand for a long time,
Mm,
or calls for a lot of physical acting. So maybe that's something right now that you shouldn't go for or can't go for. But that role in particular was one where I've kept the audio, and I'm like, man, that sound awesome. I couldn't do it again. I may be able to get in that character for a short amount of time, but I would not be able to fulfill my obligation as an actor to present
yeah.
this creative process,
Never.
these words, and this vision for 2 to 4 hours in a setting with being directed. I just
Yeah.
couldn't
That
do it. So that
never
that
even.
that particular role was a bad fit for that reason.
Right. Because I never even considered that. The idea that you might
Hmm.
absolutely nail a choice in an audition, but it was such a specific moment in time where you delivered that particular interpretation or that choice that you made to then not be able to replicate that. I never even considered that. You just, I think a lot of people would assume that once you've put yourself on tape, well, you could just do that again. But it might, that's
Right.
where you risk manufacturing, especially certainly if it's an emotional scene, you risk sort of manufacturing the emotion, and that then comes across very falsely, again, souring potentially the relationship with a casting director or your actual director. But it's what a weird problem that I hadn't even considered until we kind of segued into that you might absolutely destroy in your audition tape, but no, sitting there knowing that that cannot be replicated and sending it is would be like you said, it was just detrimental to your
Detrimental.
reputation, and also I suppose beyond that might also knock your own confidence too. You might suddenly start, a little bit of we mentioned imposter syndrome earlier. A little bit of self-doubt might start creeping in there because you feel like, oh, well, I nailed it once, but now I can't do it again, and now suddenly you're stuck in this sort of perpetual cycle of bit of self-sabotage, and that could be really tricky, I think, for a lot of young actors.
Oh, 1,000%, Jonathan. And even like I said, with that story, when I went back in the studio, I listened back to it, and there I was, doing this voice, and it was getting bigger and crazier, and, or something like that.
Mm,
And it was like, cool, this is fun. And then I had to do like a roar. I'm like, this is wonderful as I destroy everyone's ears. I apologize. And then I had to get like down and a little more guttural, and I could feel the taxing in my voice because I've not taken extreme vocal lessons. I've not taken that workshop, that training. And those are under, extreme conditions. You've got to do extreme vocals, extreme excerpts.
mm.
And I was like, I can't do this. In just a short time of getting a glass of water, my voice had already fatigued to that point where I couldn't replicate it, where with good conscience, couldn't replicate something that I'm going to get paid for.
Right.
So that's why I didn't. That's why I didn't do it. Another thing too is if you're auditioning and you're giving out audio, say you're going to do a remote session, and what you're recording on is actually going to be potentially used for the project. You have to make sure that you don't go in there and fine tune stuff, change the EQ, add a little more bass to your voice, a little
Right.
more high end,
Yeah.
pitch up so you sound a bit younger or whatever it's going on. Because then again, you're giving off a lie too that you're going to be able to do this voice in a real setting, and you can't. So
I've
again,
definitely done it. I've definitely done that where it was really, really early days, but even before Burly Bird, it was when I was just experimenting with some YouTube stuff. And
mhm,
it was the first time I'd done like a self video, like a self tape. for some. This was like a decade ago,
Mhm.
and I listened to my voice, and I thought, and as we often do when we listen to voicemail, we think we sound like this, and it's all down here. And what I actually sounded like was like, all right. I was like, up here, right? And it was hot,
Mm.
scratchy and high pitched. And I remember using Audacity of all programs, just a free
Mhm.
audio editor at the time, and just I based my own voice. I pitched it down because I wanted to have welcome to the like I wanted to have a bit of that
Yeah.
going on. And I also remember thinking how dirty it felt when I posted it. When I shared it, I then went, "Oh, that's not me.
Well,
That's no good."
take a step. It's okay. Listen, that's something totally different. You can do that. I mean, every audio, like 99% of the stuff I post on social media, you hear, or commercial work I do, my voice is EQ'd. There's compression added to it.
Mm,
Okay. But when you're doing auditions for projects, any type of project, they want the raw audio,
absolutely.
what you are technically available to give, and then they
Then they
that
can then
they're
mess with it.
yes,
That's
they're
an
audio
important
editors of a certain
distinction.
mindset. Yeah.
That's a really
Hmm.
important distinction, I think,
Yeah.
between what the end result of a signed project will be, you actually playing the character, versus what you're actually putting on tape for an audition material. That's a very, that's the audition material is the one that has to be the raw, that has to be the uncompressed, it's the unfiltered version of you, and that allows them a baseline to then build on it. That's an
So
interesting
I just
distinction.
so yeah, two things. I've done auditions too, where the character they'll say in the bio, "Hey, this character is gonna be wearing a helmet, a metallic helmet."
Right.
So you're like, all right, well, maybe I may overanalyze it because what will what will sound clear and concise if from the raw or the origin audio that I'm providing,
Mm,
if there's the effect of a helmet there. So sometimes because I do audio editing and that as well, so sometimes I may overanalyze that or overthink that. And in fact, I was doing an audition last night, and I'm going to continue doing one today. The character is based off of whispers, and the character kind of like is the voice on your shoulder or in the back of your head that comes in to guide you
right.
uh down nefarious paths. So there's this concept, like, how am I going to portray the character? So what I did was I actually laid out a couple various tracks, and then I put them and I added some echo that I've heard, that I assume that this finished product may turn into, and I listened to it that way. That way I could juxtapose, like, okay, this is the potential finished sound. What works best with that effect? Now I'm also crazy, so I'm going to this extreme level, but I'm also trying to know how the end product's going to sound. So it's almost like reverse engineering how I'm going to portray this character. So to finish that up, I liked my second version of it, where I continued this more of this flowing pitch to my voice than one where it was abrupt, or pauses were done. So it kind of had this warm up and down dreamlike vibe to it, compared to one where I'm this and then I'm down and then I'm
Mm.
here. So yeah, it's a challenge. And again, I could be totally overthinking it, but it's something that I it kind of hit me with, and I'm like, I'm going to do this. So I had the tools to kind of bring it to fruition, whether it's going to happen or not. And that was kind of like my basis for this character, as we kind of go back to the audition concept of episode one. When you're auditioning for roles, what do you have to consider?
Going full circle. Well, that will just about
Hmm.
wrap it up for episode 2 of Dulcet Tones. Once again, I've been joined by my legendary co-host, Stephen Murray. Stephen, thank you so much again for jumping on the pod with me this evening, and for giving up your time. It is appreciated.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I learn every time a whole bunch about stage acting and more, just by hanging out with you.
Well, this has been, yeah, very sort of reciprocal in that sense. Like I feel like
Mhm.
I've been able to like that idea of distinction between what you're putting down for auditions versus the finished product of a character. It's such an interesting way of describing that distinction. I thought again, right back at you. I feel like it is a bit of a workshop for me too. So hopefully everyone, you've enjoyed our back and forth. We'll be back again with another episode of Dulcet Tones, hosted right here on Burly Bird Media. You can follow us on all of the Twitters and Facebooks and YouTubes and Twitches, etc., at Burly Bird Media. And where can everyone find you, Mr. Stephen Murray?
In a van down by the river, Jonathan, if I don't get this latest role I went for. No. You
Sorry.
guys can
Hey man,
find me.
where can they hit you up on the socials, man? Like, talk to me.
So like on the socials, like if you are on the gram, it's gonna be
No, we're not
Murdog77.
allowed. We're
Oh,
not allowed to say on the
sorry.
gram. That's not
Oh,
okay.
that character's allowed to say
That's
there.
true. That's fair.
That
That's fair.
character. So it's gonna be Murdog, MURRDOGG77. Instagram is X is gonna be Murray Dog, MURRAYDOGG77. And my website is voiceactorgarage.com.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, everyone, for tuning in to episode 2 of Dulcet Tones. Please do consider jumping in, checking out some of our live shows on Twitch. We stream our System Link live podcast and gameplay stream every Wednesday at 9 p.m. And also, we have Burly Bird live on a Saturday night, playing whatever we fancy playing. Please do consider checking that out as well. But of course, you can find us more episodes of Dulcet Tones right here on YouTube, on Podbean, and on Spotify. Thanks again, Stephen, for jumping on with me, and we will see you all next time.